following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers, this is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a special review, and tonight we are going to be taking a look at not one, or even two, but in fact all 6 of the Transformers Legacy Evolution Core Class Dinobots. So yes, the title of the video is no joke. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at the Legacy Evolution Core Class Dinobots and their combined form of Volcanicus. Released throughout the current year of 2023 at the time of this video's recording. I was originally going to pass on the Core Class Dinobots, and I'll go into details why I was originally going to pass on them throughout the review. But until then, I looked around last month during October, and I was looking at all the Transformers action figures from the Legacy Evolution line that I added to my Transformers collection, and I noticed that out of all the Transformers Legacy Evolution figures that I had, the only ones that I was missing that were released at mass retail were in fact the Core Class Dinobots. And out of all the Core Class figures that have been released this year, even though I've seen many Transformers fans and collectors say that some of the Core Class Dinobots aren't the best Core Class figures that have been released this year, from what I've seen online as far as the availability of them, the Dinobots are among the more sought-after Core Class figures that have come out, not just for their combined mode of Volcanicus, which is what they're built around, and is being able to combine with each other, but also these are, I believe, are the first ever 3-inch tall action figures of the Dinobots that have been released that are based off of the original Generation 1 Dinobots. The closest thing we've gotten has been a handful of action figures in the past, but as far as dedicated 3-inch tall, all tiny sized versions of them, this is the first time we've gotten the Dinobots. So we've got the Dinobots team leader Grimlock, we got Sludge, we got Swoop, Snarl, who was the last of these Dinobots to be released. He was released actually at the beginning of actually I think he was released at the start of October, so Snarl's only been out for 1.5 months. And then of course we've got Slag, as he was originally known. Now he's known as Slug due to trademark reasons. And we have the only member of the Dinobots who wasn't originally one of the 5 Generation 1 Dinobots. We have Dinobot Scarr. Alright, can't remember if Scarr has appeared in any previous Transformers series or stories, but the fact that I'll touch on this right now at the start of the video to keep things interesting. The fact that Scar's dinosaur mode is an Ankylosaurus, or from the moment Scarr was revealed, and that it was revealed, the main gimmick with the Core Class Dinobots is their ability to combine into Volcanicus. There's been speculation amongst Transformers fans and collectors that the Dinobots are going to be repainted and retooled into Dino King and also possibly Monstructor, because as in the original Transformers Generation 1 line, Dino King and Monstructor, who were repaints and retools of each other. Dino King was released by Takara Tomy in Japan, and then Monstructor was released by Hasbro here in the United States. They were the 2 smallest combiners to be released in the Transformers Generation 1 line that weren't Micromasters. And I actually saw a video several years ago where someone showed that Monstructor is the same size as Generation 1 Optimus Prime. So, one of the members of Dino King had Ankylosaurus for his dinosaur armor. So a lot of Transformers fans and collectors are wondering not if, but when Hasbro and Takara Tomy are going to retool the Dinobots into either the Dino Force, which was the name of the Decepticons who form Dino King, or the Pretender Monsters, which is the name of the Transformers that combine into Monstructor. I personally hope that we get both Monstructor and Dino King retools from Volcanicus. But for now, let's bring focus back here on the Dinobots. We'll take a close look at each of them in their boxes individually, and I will show them off in the order that they have been released. So first up, we have Dinobot Slug, as he's now known. Oh no, whoops! I keep forgetting the core class Dinobots have their names on the correct right side up side of the box. So yeah, Dinobot Slug first up. He was the first one to be released, and the overall consensus I've seen from Transformers fans and collectors as far as which of the Dinobots are the best ones, and the best ones according to most Transformers fans and collectors, the consensus is that the best core class Dinobots are Swoop and Snarl. The second best ones are Slag and Grimlock, and then the worst ones are, unfortunately, Scarr and Sludge. So yeah, not all six of the core class Dinobots have been received equally, and they aren't all six of them aren't equally as impressive as if for Transformers fans and collectors. They do find some of the core class Dinobots more interesting than others, and but yes, I just wanted to point that out. So here is Slug, or as he was originally known in Transformers Generation 1, Slag with the letter A instead of the letter U. The word slag egg is the word that refers to the a useless molten metal material that's left over during the smelting process of turning iron ore into steel. Not all of the components of the iron ore, when they're smelted down to make steel, are useful. Some of the waste material is known as slag metal, and in the past, slag metal would just be thrown into slag heaps and left to have to decompose and just and it's a very messy waste product, and so that's where he got his original Generation 1 name of Dinobot Slag. But in more recent years, it's come to the attention of Hasbro that the word slag refers to a gets used in some European countries, such as the United Kingdom, to describe a woman who uses her physical appearance to sexually act people and seduce them. And it's the word slag is used in that regard. The same way here in the United States, we use the four-letter word that is spelled almost the same as the word slug, only you switch out the letter G with the letter T, and that's what the word we use here in the United States. That's the equivalent of the other definition of the word slag. So to avoid that entirely, Hasbro decided to just rename Slag Slug after the term slugs being the empty cartridges that are fired out of machine guns. But some people can't get over the fact that he's named after the slug uh, insect insect that wiggles on the ground. So it's up to you to decide which of the Triceratops Dinobot, which of his names you prefer. The original one that Hasbro gave him back in 1984 for the Generation 1 line, or his new copyrighted name that he's been using since Transformers Age of Extinction came out back in 2014. Thanks to freedom of speech, I'd call this guy Slag, since I'm aware that he's named after the smelting process. But it's all your personal preference, so I'm going to be referring to him as Slag throughout the rest of the video. So here's some box art of him in his Triceratops mode. Here he is packaged inside the box in robot mode. You got half of the poster image for the Legacy Evolution line. You got a box art of Slag in his robot mode. And yeah, pretty nice looking figure. Here on the back of the box, you got the product photos. You got him in his robot mode and in his Triceratops mode. Transforms back and forth between both modes in just 8 steps, and he is number 2 out of 6 of the core class Dinobots that form Volcanicus. And yes, that is Dinobot Slag, or Slug as he's now known. And yeah, pretty nice looking for a tiny sized Triceratops. And then next up we have what is personally my least favorite of the core class Dinobots, and it is Dinobot Sludge. And this right here, Sludge, was the Transformers action figure that originally made me not add the core class Dinobots to my Transformers collection. I wasn't interested in getting the core class Dinobots because of Sludge, Edge, and so I figured I'd save money by passing on the core class Dinobots entirely. So yeah, Sludge was the action figure that put me off of Legacy Evolution, Volcanicus, and all of the Dinobots. It's due to how his robot mode is designed. I'll show it off when we get him out of his box more. But yeah, Sludge was the one that made me originally pass on the core class Dinobots, but luckily I was able to get all 6 of them last month in October. I was able to get someone was selling all 6 of them on eBay for what I thought was a decent price. Nice, it was right after Snarl had been released, so at least I was able to get Volcanicus all at the same time. So that's why I'm reviewing all of them in the same video because I got them all at once. I didn't buy them periodically throughout the year. But as far as when they were released, Slag and Sludge were released around I want to say February of 2023, and then Grimlock and Scarr came out around I want to say sometime around May, and then Swoop came out sometime in August, and finally Snarl was released last month in October. So yeah, it's taken collectors who've gotten the core class Dinobots from the moment they were released about I want to say close to 6 months to complete Volcanicus. But yeah, here is Sludge. Right inside of his box, there's some artwork of him in his dinosaur mode. Oh, he transforms into an Apatosaurus. Or is there a Sludge inside the box? And there's his name. And I'm going to skip the poster images for the poster image side of the box since I already showed it off. But here we got some artwork of Sludge in his robot mode, and that artwork, it really does Sludge justice, and I'll explain it again in detail. Here you got some product photos of Sludge in his robot mode and his alt mode. He transforms back and forth between both modes in 8 steps, and he's the number 1 of the 6 core class Dinobots who combines into Volcanicus. And in my opinion, if you can get over the fact of how terrible of an action figure core class Sludge is considering he's the worst of the core class Dinobots, then I personally believe Hasbro and Takara did a fairly decent job of designing action figures of the Dinobots in 3-inch size. At number 3, we've got the Dinobots team leader Grimlock. Lock, here he is inside of his box. There's some artwork of him in his T-Rex mode. Oh, there he is right there. Here on the side of the box, you've got some artwork of Grimlock in his robot mode, and some people have been saying that they were kind of hoping that maybe Grimlock might at least come with his traditional sword weapon since he's the Dinobots team leader. But considering the fact that the part of Volcanicus that Grimlock forms is one of the eggs, despite the fact that he's the team leader, I can kind of see why they omitted the sword weapon for Grimlock. But here he is. Here he is in the back of the box. His product photos. You've got his robot mode and his T-Rex mode. He transforms back and forth between both modes in 10 steps. Sludge just transforms into 8 like Slag, just in case I forgot to mention that. But yeah, there is Grimlock, and he is the number 3 of the core class Dinobots that combine into Volcanicus. And yes, I've seen a few collectors say that the core class figure of Grimlock, it's not the best Grimlock figure, but at the same time, it's not the worst. I've seen a handful of Grimlock action figures that are far worse than the core class figure, so I can definitely give that figure a pass from Hasbro. And then at number 4, we've got the only member of the core class Dinobots that wasn't originally in the Transformers Generation 1 series. We got Dinobot Scarr. So there he is in his dinosaur mode of an Ankylosaurus. There he is in his robot mode. There's some artwork of him there in his robot mode, and I really do love the artwork of him. It's showing him using what becomes one of Volcanicus's hands. He's using it almost like a gauntlet weapon, and it doubles as the club tail for his Ankylosaurus mode. So that's nice that they incorporated that for the box art of his dinosaur mode on the front of the box. Come on here to the back, you've got Scarr in his robot mode, and in his dinosaur mode, he transforms back and forth between both modes in 9 steps. He's the 4th core class Dinobot that forms Volcanicus. Yes, and Yeah, I'm really impressed with how Scarr turned out for being the only non Generation One Dinobot to join the Dinobots team. I'm really impressed with how he's designed. And a lot of Transformers fans who are fans of the Dinobots in general, I've seen more than one fan say they would have preferred if this guy had been given the name Scorn, or maybe even Slash, and named after one of the Dinobots from Transformers Age of Extinction instead of being yet another Dinobot member. But I think it's just proof that that the that only the how do I word this? Not the five original Transformers Generation One Dinobots don't necessarily always have to be the only Dinobots that serve Dinobots that make up the Dinobot team. Yeah, there's room for other members of the Dinobots to be given action figures. So, whether or not Scarr will open the floodgates for Generation 1 versions of past Dinobot characters being given figures in the Legacy line is uncertain. But if we do get more Dinobot members such as Scorn, Slash, Paddles is another Dinobot. I think there might be another Dinobot named Scorch from Robots in Disguise 2015, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I'm fairly optimistic about future Dinobot team members. Next up, we have Swoop, and Transformers fans and collectors are divided as to whether or not Swoop or Snarl are the very best of the core class Dinobots. What makes Swoop somewhat special and unique, and also one of the reasons why he's arguably one of the most hard to find of the core class Dinobots, is that Swoop is the only member of the 5 Generation 1 Dinobots whose Legacy Evolution core class figure was released before his Studio Series 86 Leader class figure. The other 4 Dinobots who were originally created back in 1984, they've all been given their Leader class figures released in the Studio Series 86 line. They were all released before their core class figures were released. But Swoop is the only one whose Studio Series 86 figure is being released after his core class figure, and so a lot of Transformers fans and collectors have been wanting to get a hold of Swoop because this is the first action figure of Generation 1 Swoop that's been released since the deluxe class figure of him was released in the Power of the Primes line back in 2018. And I've seen a lot of Transformers fans and collectors joke about it, but I haven't seen any photos of it. But some have been saying that core class Swoop, here's the box art of him in his pterodactyl mode. Oh, there he is inside the box. You got some artwork of him here in his robot mode. Oh, and I really like that artwork design there for Swoop. But what I was going to say is that as far as action figures of the Dinobots that are size accurate based on how large paleontologists theorized dinosaurs were when they were alive, core class Swoop, when you put him next to Power of the Primes Voyager class Grimlock, Power of the Primes Deluxe class Snarl and Slag, and also Studio Series 86 Leader class Sludge. If you team up core class Dinobot Swoop with those other figures of the Dinobots, then those are the most size accurate versions of the Dinobots. That are size accurate in terms of the types of dinosaurs that they transform into. So that's another reason I believe a lot of Transformers and the collectors have been going around trying to eagerly add Swoop to their collections. But because the Studio Series 86 Leader class versions of the Dinobots, the core class figures kind of sort of look like miniature versions of the Studio Series 86 Leader class figures. Because we got core class Swoop first, a lot of Transformers fans and collectors are now wondering just how the upcoming Studio Series 86 Leader class Swoop figure that's being released next year in 2024, how it's going to look and compare to core class Swoop. But anyways, coming on here to the back of the box, you've got Swoop in his robot mode and in his pterodactyl mode, and the product photos shows he transforms back and forth between both modes in 6 steps, and he's the 5th of the 6 Dinobots that combine into Volcanicus. based on all the positive feedback I've seen other fans and collectors give on their YouTube channels, Swoop is definitely one of the must-have figures of the core class line. Unlike the previously shown core class figures, figures, Swoop was the first of the core class Dinobots to actually be given. You can even see it here in front of the box. He has actual elbow joints in his arms, so you can get him into a lot more decent action poses than you can get with Scarr, Grimlock, Slag, and Sludge. They don't have any elbow joints, so the articulation on the first four core class Dinobots that were released is kind of on par with traditionally small-sized Transformers figures where there aren't too many articulated joints. But with Swoop and also the last of the 6 core class Dinobots to be released, Snarl, because they have elbow joints and joints, they have a lot more that gives them bigger edge over the other core class Dinobots. So that's one of the reasons why they're considered the best out of the 6 X members of Team Volcanicus. So yeah, Snarl was the last of the core class Dinobots to be released. He's been out on the market for only, I want to say, 1.5 months, not quite 2 months yet. But he is pretty impressive looking. For me personally, Snarl is my second favorite of the Dinobots. My overall favorite being Grimlock here. And the reason why Snarl is my second favorite of the Dinobots is because he transforms into my favorite dinosaur, the Stegosaurus. So there's some nice box art of Snarl in his dinosaur mode of a Stegosaurus. And even though he can't actually turn his head or his tail in dinosaur mode, I do enjoy still seeing that image of him here with the box art. So yeah, it's a pretty nice looking image of Snarl in Stegosaurus mode. There he is inside the box. And then here on this side of the box, you've got some box art of Snarl in his robot mode. He's charging into battle. All the Dinobots are in their box art. Here, coming out here at the back of the box, you've got Snarl in his robot mode and in his Stegosaurus mode. He transforms back and forth between both modes in 8 steps. And he is number 6 out of 6, the last of the core class Dinobots who combine into Volcanicus to be released. So yeah, with the release of Snarl, we now have all the members of Team Volcanicus, and unlike the other core class Dinobots whose weapons are kind of like melee weapons that become part of their dinosaur alt modes, Snarl is the only core class Dinobot who has the sword that his original Generation 1 action figure had. Um, Unfortunately, the only weapon storage I've seen for the sword is to peg it either on top of his back or on the sides of one of his legs. But yeah, Snarl has become the only core class Dinobot to have the same weapon that he originally had in the Transformers Generation 1 line. And I gotta say, it really is impressive to. I do regret at not getting the core class Dinobots at first and waiting so long to add them to my collection. But for me personally, it was worth it to get it Volcanicus in one go and get them all at the same time. I'm having I'm to. It was worth waiting until Snarl got released to finally get them all. As I before we actually get them out of the box, I'll touch on it right now. Before we take them out of their boxes and take a look at them in robot mode, I said that Sludge here was the reason why I originally passed on the core class Dinobots. I can kind of show it by showing you a close up of the product photo of his robot mode. And the way the Dinobots combine into Volcanicus, Volcanicus's eyes strut out from the sides of Sludge's legs, and as a result of that, if you look right there on the image of that leg, Volcanicus's thigh, it attaches at the top of Sludge's pelvis, but then there's empty space in the middle, and then the lower leg of Sludge, it's actually attached to Volcanicus's thigh instead of the upper half of his leg. So, yeah, his lower legs aren't directly attached to his body; they're attached to Volcanicus's hips, which then attach to his pelvis. So, because of the design of Sludge's legs, that's the reason why I originally passed on the core class Dinobots, and originally why I had no plans on getting Volcanicus. Is because of that. horrible design of Sludge's individual robot mode. But after seeing all the positive reviews on Swoop and Snarl and how great they uh, I decided to cave in and add Volcanicus to my Transformers collection. But apart from Sludge being having a terrible robot mode, the main reason I passed on the core class Dinobots was because earlier this year I lost my old job, and it took me 2 months to find my new job that I'm currently working at now. So decided to save my money by passing on the core class Dinos. But now that I've gotten them all, I do not regret adding them, and I've done a 180 on my opinion on the necessity of the core class Dinobots being inside my own collection of Transformers action figures. So without further delay, let's get the Dinobots out of their boxes and take a close look at them in their robot modes. I apologize, I almost forgot. Before we actually get them out of their boxes, one thing I wanted to touch on is that throughout this current year of 2023, the year I've recorded this video, Hasbro tried to go plastic free on the Transformers packaging that the Transformers actually came packaged inside of, and the result of going plastic free, with the exception of the Transformers action figures themselves, Hasbro and Tomy brought back the paper twist tie downs that they used for Transformers action figures for a while during the early 2010s. And I personally prefer having the paper tie downs because they are much easier and much less of a hassle to get Transformers action figures out of their packaging. But Hasbro announced that the plastic-free packaging, it hasn't been as positively viewed as they received, so they are going to bring back some forms of the plastic packaging. And one form that I wish they wouldn't have brought back is that they replaced the paper tie downs with the plastic ones that they've used since the Titans Return line back in 2016. They used paper tie downs, I believe, starting with the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen line in 2009, and it lasted all the way through until the Combiner Wars line in 2015. And so, all of the core class Dinobots, except for Snarl, the other core class Dinobots have the paper tie downs, and these plastic ones that were used here on Snarl, they have been a pain in the neck to do. When they brought back the paper tie downs for this year with the Legacy, starting actually last year with the Legacy Year 1 and the Legacy Evolution line, I was thrilled that paper tie downs were brought back because they are much easier to handle. And also, it is disappointing that the plastic tie downs are being brought back. Apparently, the plastic tie downs are even cheaper than the paper tie downs are but hopefully the part of the plastic on the packaging that's brought back is not the plastic tie downs, but it is in fact the plastic windows on the front of the boxes. Supposedly, plastic windows are going to come back on leader class Transformers figures after they've been sold in windowless boxes since the Legacy Year 1 line. But I just wanted to share that with you guys briefly, so hopefully there's a brighter future for the boxes that Transformers action figures actually come packaged in. Alright, the review's already gone on much longer than I intended it to, so here they are in their robot modes. I won't go into them too much individually, but here's just a quick close-up of each of them. Here is Grimlock. His weapon is a double-barrel laser gun that forms, I believe it's the back of his T-Rex neck. Here's Slag. And again, his blaster, in addition to forming I believe it's part of his tail, it's actually Volcanicus' head. That's pretty clever. Ever there. Sludge is the only one who doesn't actually have a handheld weapon. And again, here's those horrible eggs where the lower leg isn't actually attached to the upper leg on Sludge. They're each attached to Volcanicus's thighs. So yeah, that was what put me off of the core class dinos was that design on Sludge's robot mode. Oh, and of course here is Scarr. His weapon is one of Volcanicus's fists, which doubles as a laser gun. And here is Swoop. His laser gun. His two laser guns are the other hand for Volcanicus, which splits in half to give him two laser guns, which I think is a very neat design choice. Always for the designers that Hasbro and Descartes told me to do. And of course, here we have Snarl. He's the only Dinobot who comes with his Generation 1 sword, so that's really nice there. As far as articulation goes, the Dinobots, all of them, more or less pretty much have the same aim joints. Grimlock, Slag, and Scarr have the same joints, and Snarl as each other, and Snarl and Swoop have the same joints as each other, and then Sludge is the most unique because of those horrible legs, but essentially they all have all they have swivel joints in their heads so they can spin left and right if they want. Ball jointed shoulders on all of them except for Slag. He actually has universal jointed shoulders, but he still has a pretty decent amount of articulation. So the arms can go inward and outward at the shoulder slightly, and then they can rotate forward and backwards. I believe all six of them, all of them except for uh, Snarl have waist joints. There's waist joints on Scarr, Swoop. There's a waist joint on Grimlock. I see a waist joint on Sludge. No, and there is even a waist joint on. I just call him Sludge. Slag. He has a waist joint too. So does Sludge, but the waist joint, instead of being at his actual waist, it's actually halfway up his torso. You can see the opening for the waist joint right there. So it's a little out of place. Ace, and then of course Snarl and Swoop are the only ones who have hinge joints in the elbows. So the other Dinobots, their arms are just one piece. Technically, Grimlock has elbow joints, but they're just swivels. Due to his a transformation, it being a transformation joint for when he combines into Volcanicus. Anicus, ball jointed hips on. I believe all of them have ball jointed hips. Looking at them, except for Sludge, he's got hinge joints at the hips. There's the backside of Sludge. So yeah, I really hate the legs on Sludge's robot mode. But apart from the legs on Sludge, I do enjoy the rest of him. And from the waist up, Sludge is a pretty decent Dinobot. All six of them are um, Snar Snarl and Swoop have a hinge jointed knees, but then Scarr, Grimlock, and Slag all have jointed knees. Technically, Sludge has ball jointed knees, but due to how it connects it doesn't quite a ball joint the same way as the others do. And none of them have ankle joints due to their small size being core class figures. And as far as additional articulated joints, technically you could position Grimlock's eggs, and Snarl's Stegosaurus tail and Swoop's wings. You could have them sprawled out so you can give the parts of their dinosaur modes additional poses if you want. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the robot modes. So let's get these guys transformed and take a close look at them in their dino modes. Alright, and so here are the Dinobots transformed into their dinosaur modes. And for what they are, being core class sized versions of them, they are fairly okay versions of the Dinobots. You've got Slag, or Slug as he's now known, in his Triceratops mode. His lower jaw doesn't really like to stay clamped shut completely due to it rotating 180 degrees due to transformation. Here is Sludge in his Apatosaurus mode, and I believe, somewhat ironically, Sludge's Apatosaurus mode is the physically smallest of the core class Dinobots. The others are all slightly bulkier than he is, even Swoop. Here is Grimlock in T-Rex mode. You can, if you want, since Grimlock does have a neck joint. Alright, you can, if you want, get Grimlock in what is now the accepted position that the T-Rex, that the Tyrannosaurus Rex is believed to have been in. For years, it was thought that because the Tyrannosaurus Rex was a two-legged dinosaur, that it stood upright like human beings do. But in more recent years, it's been revealed that the T-Rex actually stood with its whole body parallel to the ground, and its weight was supported entirely by its legs. It didn't have any support from its tail for body distribution. So because Grimlock is a little top heavy, you do have to rotate him slightly downward if you want to get him into the what is now believed to be the more anatomically correct position for a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And having the whole body parallel to the ground, it actually made the T-Rex a much faster runner than the more traditional upright standing version. So you have options with Grim. You have different posing options with Grimlock. Not so much so with the other Dinobots. Let's say for Slag being able to open and close his mouth. Although when you open his mouth entirely, it looks like he's actually dislocated his jaw due to it being a transformation joint, and his robot mode head is also inside there. So if you open his mouth up too far, you will see the robot mode head poking out. But as far as the Dinobots having leg articulation, the only ones that really do are Grimlock, Slag, and also Scarr. Here's a close-up of Scarr and his get my fingers out of the way and try and show off as much as I can while holding it up in the air. Here is Scarr in his Ankylosaurus mode. And again, because Scarr is an Ankylosaurus, it's because of him that a lot of Transformers fans and collectors are currently speculating that the core class Dinobots will basically Volcanicus is going to be. It's widely speculated that Volcanicus will be repainted and retooled either into Dino King or Monstructor. I personally hope we get both of those combiners. But no leg articulation whatsoever with Sludge, and also unfortunately with Snarl, their legs are stationary. You can flap Swoop's wings up and down if you desire, but it is limited, and you get most articulation with his wingtips, but you can't get him into a flying stand. The wings are slightly more flexible if you remove his laser guns from the underside of his wings, but he does have that at motion as well. Unfortunately, because his pterodactyl beak is so small, it doesn't open and shut. It's just one permanently part that's always there. And of course, the robot mode head also forms the head crest for the pterodactyl mode, so you can kind of sort of see Swoop's robot mode face sticking out there in the dinosaur mode. And of course, here's a close-up of Snarl. You do have proper weapon storage for Snarl's sword, where there's a rectangular shaped peg on his underside to attach it in. You can even attach it using the same peg that you do in robot mode, where it stores on his back using that little rectangular slot right there in the center. Enter. But on both ports, they're slightly smaller than the peg on the sword itself, so it takes a lot of effort to shove the sword in there to store or inside Snarl. So overall, all the dinosaur modes, unfortunately, they aren't the best modes for the Dinobots. It's the core class versions, and unfortunately, it's all the reason why the designs of the robot modes are somewhat lackluster, and the dinosaur modes, the alt modes for the core class Dinobots, why they're slightly more lackluster than the robot modes are, is because all 6 of the Dinobots were designed around the main gimmick of being able to combine to form Volcanicus. So, since that's what the main gimmick with these Dinobots are, is being able to combine to form Volcanicus, the first ever core class sized combiner transformer, let's get these guys combined into Volcanicus and wrap up the review. Alright, and so here's the moment everyone has been waiting for most of the year. Here is Transformers Legacy Evolution Core Class Volcanicus. It's because Snarl came out after I was gonna say after Breakdown was released. Well, technically all the core class Dinobots did, but yeah, Volcanicus is the second combiner to be released in the entire Transformers Legacy line. The first was Menasor, or who has made the combined form of the Stunticons, which came out in Legacy Year 1. And most collectors didn't complete Menasor until the start of this year, since Breakdown, the last of the Stunticons, was released. Came out with Wave 1 of Legacy Evolution. But yeah, here is the second combiner, the first Autobot combiner in the overall Transformers Legacy line of Core Class Volcanicus. And yeah, it's a core class size combiner, so it's not really that impressive. As far as articulation goes, on Scarr, uh, ball the swivel joint at the shoulder is really stiff. It's a little loose on Swoop, so Volcanicus's right side arm can rotate forward and backwards much more freely than the left side can. Volcanicus does have the same waist swivel that was used on Sludge, so that's pretty nice looking there. There are knee joints on the combiner as well, but due to the swivel joints being a little stiff, if the leg articulation is pretty much the knee joint, at least, is pretty uh, not the best joint, but at least at the hips, the entire leg can move forward and backwards for both Grimlock and Snarl, so you can have Volcanicus kicking or running towards things, and you can get him into somewhat of a sprawl-legged pose, but because Grimlock and Snarl transform into feet that don't have any ankle rockers, Volcanicus stands up when he's standing upright. Now, I apologize, I don't have any Transformers action figures to bring out to do a size comparison with, but Volcanicus is the same height as most Voyager class Transformers action figures. I'd say he's about the same size as a tall Voyager, a short Leader class Transformers figure, maybe in between Voyager and Leader class. As he's definitely got the bulk of a large-sized Voyager class Transformers figure. But yeah, he is. But yeah, considering what it is while Volcanicus is not the greatest combiner, it is a fairly decent attempt for being the first core class size combiner Hasbro and Takara Tomy released. And one option you can do is you can take the sword officially on the instruction sheet. You're supposed to attach it here in front of Snarl and just basically break up the red from Snarl's Stegosaurus back and make it this leg egg a lot more gray than red head there, but you can take out the sword off of Volcanicus's ankle and you can plug it into the hand and you can have him wielding Snarl's sword as a small dagger type weapon if you desire. But even with the sword attached, there's no getting over the fact that Snarl's the only Dinobot who has a lot of red head sticking out here, so Volcanicus looks like he has one red leg while his other limbs are silvery gray like his torso is. But make no mistake, I do. For what this figure does, being a core class size combiner, I do think it's a fairly decent job. So I still am hopeful that we'll get both Dino King and Monstructor retools from Volcanicus. One thing I didn't do is push the head down all the way. It does sit down much flatter than it is right now. But if you push it down all the way, then his face is partially hidden by the Triceratops frill. But yes, overall, for being a core class ice combiner, I think it's a pretty good Transformers figure. So, for my final thoughts and the proverbial question in the review, do I recommend getting all 6 of the core class Legacy Evolution Dinobots and creating core class Volcanicus? Is Volcanicus a must-have Transformers combiner in your collection? For me personally, since I originally was going to pass on these guys altogether, I'd say it's all up to your own personal opinion. Volcanicus and the core class Dinobots, they aren't necessarily must-have Transformers action figures, but they are more or less fairly decent-sized Transformers, so I will say that if you're a fan of the Dinobots in general and you like small-sized combiner Transformers, then definitely get the Dinobots, but if you aren't really a fan of the core class Dinobots and how they turned out, and you aren't really too much of a fan of Volcanicus, then these figures can be an easy pass. So yeah, it's up to you to decide if you want the Legacy Evolution Core Class Dinobots or not. So this has been my review of all 6 of the Transformers Legacy Evolution Core Class Dinobots: Grimlock, Swoop, Snarl, Slag, Sludge, and Scarr, who combine into Volcanicus, the first Core Class Combiner Transformer. Remember, if you want these figures, then I recommend getting them. If you're uncertain about getting these figures, then they are an easy pass. So thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TF Fan Geek, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.